Greetings and welcome to Spin a Yarn Live, the Tea Time Book Club and Crafting Circle. Okay, it is going live. Yay! It worked!
Technology!
Yay! Okay. So you can interact with our stream via the chat. I have that up over here. And also, if you go to Twitter, you can use the hashtag YarnItAll to show what projects you will be working on while you do that. I am still working on this hashtag YarnItAll bookmark.
We thought it was going to be a quick project.
I thought it was going to be one episode.
We were wrong.
Very. What are you working on?
This is Cyrus. I'm working on a design of my own. So I've just started it. It's going to be a cable knit scarf with some different cables throughout it. So we'll see if it works. My math was totally off the first time I cast on, so...
Nobody needs to know.
Yeah, it was done. But I did just finish a lacy hat. I wanted to show everyone. This is for, this is a gift for the daughter of a friend of mine at the office. And if you're interested, the pattern is in this book, Lace One Skein Wonders. And it is the... How would you pronounce that? Sorry.
Hepatica.
Hepatica hat. It's a cute little beret. You can't see it. That's okay. Anyway.
Hepatica.
Good good book for lace stuff, of which I am a noob. So, we'll see.
So today, we will be talking about the first in the Hitchhikers trilogy. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The increasingly inaccurately named Hitchhiker's trilogy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And initially, Douglas Adams was just going to write 3 books, and then, of course, it became 5 books, and then I think there's some short stories as well.
Yeah.
So it went a little cray-cray.
So, what tea are we having today?
Oh, yes. So this is also a tea party. So we're going to talk about the tea we're having. We are just having a black vanilla tea, which was a gift to me from an old friend, so I don't honestly remember where she said she got it from. But it's just a black tea with a little hint of vanilla in it. It's a very nice, just kind of nice little afternoon tea that we have. This is Osiris, by the way.
Yes.
For anyone who doesn't know. He's our little babby. He's our little fur baby.
Fur baby.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't have his collar. Where's your collar? Did you take it off?
Probably.
He's a little punk.
So, I think the moral of the story, Hitchhiker's trilogy, or of the Hitchhiker's Guide, the underlying theme is that some mornings it's hard to get a good cup of tea.
That is true. That is true. Arthur cannot get a good cup of tea when he's on the ship.
No.
Even though he tries. So, for those of you joining us for the first time, since this is kind of run as a book club type thing, there will be spoilers.
For the book in question.
Yeah, as we were talking about the book. We are running under the assumption that you are familiar with the story or have read the book. So, if you haven't, or haven't seen the movie or a short story, or listened to the audio drama back in the 70s, then you're out of luck. I don't really know anyone who's not familiar with the Hitchhiker's Guide, but anyway.
But that's standard for all of our episodes.
Mm-hmm.
You can probably still follow along even if you aren't familiar with the book we're doing that week. But yeah, if you have actually read it, you'll understand more of what's going on.
Yeah. So yeah, it had been a while. I read the whole series back in high school, so I had forgotten the very dry humor that comes with a lot of British works, but particularly with Douglas Adams. So that I did laugh out loud at quite a few things.
Yeah, he's a very comedic writer.
Mm-hmm.
He's very good at... So, like, one of the keys of comedy, I've heard, because I'm not funny, is taking two things that are different and pointing out that they are the same. But Douglas Adams throws... Oh my goodness.
This is a recurring problem.
Mm-hmm.
I want to knit, and he wants attention.
But Douglas Adams also throws a negative in there. So, he'll talk about the Vogon ships. Mm-hmm. How they hang in the sky much the same way that bricks don't. Which, that's kind of his style of comedy, and it's absolutely hilarious.
It is. Like when Arthur is trying to get tea on the hey now, don't eat my knitting needles.
On the hey now.
When he's trying to get a cup of tea on the ship, what does he say? What's the quote?
It produces a cup of liquid that
what is it? It's like
tastes almost but not quite entirely unlike tea.
Not entirely unlike tea. It's like, okay. It took me a while to wrap that sentence around my brain. I'm so confused. I'm like, does it taste like tea or does it not taste like tea? I'm so confused.
It completely does not taste like tea, except there's a small hint that might taste like tea.
It might taste like tea.
Maybe.
Anyway, who is your favorite character? This has a whole cast of characters, which I like about this book.
Oh man, my favorite character. I know my favorite character from like the 5th book.
Well, we're not doing the 5th book. We're only doing the 1st book. I don't even remember the subsequent books, to be honest. Cute.
I mean, it's got to be the bowl of petunias, right? No.
The bowl of petunias.
I'm a big fan of Slarty Bartfast. I'm a Slarty Bartfast fan.
Oh, okay.
He so I mean, he's not entirely happy with his lot in life, even though he's done great things in the past. He designed the fjords of Norway.
He's very proud.
He is very proud. He won an award for that.
He did.
And I just like the word fjords.
Of course you do.
So, you know. But he's also very stony. And it's like very monotone almost. But underlies like all the craziness that's happening. He's like one of the stones. But he still takes Arthur into like some insane situations. So there's kind of a little bit of the ironicness with that. Who's your favorite character?
I really love Marvin.
Marvin.
The manically depressed robot. And if you ever saw the movie that came out, oh gosh, I don't even know, early 2000s or mid 2000s, something like that. And they cast Alan Rickman as the voice for Marvin, the manically depressed robot. And it was just too perfect. It really, really was. I mean, he always entertained me, the robot, just how everything is just so drab and why does it matter, and I have the brain the size of a planet, and they ask me to go and get the people downstairs. I mean, like, just the way that Alan Rickman did the voice, it was so good, and I just fell even more in love with the manically depressed robot. he's really very funny, but like I understand why a lot of people like Arthur being the main character, of course, and he's the... I guess he's supposed to be, like, the grounding character. Like, he's supposed to be the character we can relate to, because he's the Earthman. He's
who doesn't know anything about the universe.
Yeah, he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't understand half the things. But I don't know. I find his naivete, or whatever you want to call it, to be a little annoying. Mm-hmm. Like... He keeps asking questions at first, and then eventually he's just like, well, I guess I'm just going to go along with it, which, then it makes his scenes a little easier for me to read, because I'm like, okay, he's going to let the flow continue, which I really like. I'm not the biggest fan of Zaphod, but I'm not sure if you're supposed to be.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, so I had a arch nemesis in
yes, you did.
in high school, and yeah, he always reminded me almost identically of Zaphod. It's the big ego.
Mm-hmm. The idea you can get away with anything as long as you have enough charm, I guess, to deal with it. I'm gonna stuff my face now, you guys. Got a big old cookie.
But yeah, no, Zaphod's definitely supposed to be grating, especially since the audience is supposed to be behind Arthur Dent. And Zaphod is kind of the main antagonist to Arthur Dent.
I do like sorry. It just made me think of this scene because Ford is, Ford Prefect, who's the one who drags Arthur into all these shenanigans, is Zaphod's cousin. Not like first cousin, but, semi-cousin, I think is what he calls it. So he knows him, he's going to make the introductions, and Ford's like, we've met, or Arthur's like, we've met. And he gets all upset because Zaphod had, taken this girl away from him at a party that he was chatting up, and he was like, oh, yeah, I was making headway, and then he came along and was like, I'm from outer space, you should come hang out with me. And I thought those two meeting again was a really funny scene.
And then Trillian walks in and says, turns out he was from outer space.
Mm-hmm. Trillian walks in and you're like, well, he wasn't lying.
Yeah.
He is from outer space.
Just in case you haven't read this book, the whole conceit is that the ship that gets stolen and that they end up being on,
Heart of Gold?
The Heart of Gold, is run by the Infinite Impossibility Drive.
Mm-hmm. No,
Infinite Probability.
Probability, yeah.
Yeah, Infinite Probability Drive. So it travels by increasing its, the odds that it will appear somewhere in the universe. So if there's a 1 in 17 trillion chance it appears on the other side of the universe, it just cranks up the engine to trillion to 1 against, and it ends up there. So what ends up happening is every time they run it, coincidences happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the big first one was, of course, Arthur and Zaphod having met. The girl that they were on is also on the ship with Zaphod, and Zaphod and Ford are cousins. It's like all these things. And it's a very ingenious way of Douglas Adams getting away with any plot contrivance he wants.
That's very true.
Because he can just blame it on the improbability drive. It's like, oh, I don't need to explain how all of these people who happen to know each other also happen to be on the same ship. It's because of this
the improbability of it, and this drive, makes the improbability.
So that's probable. A very clever way of getting past
Yes, it's a very clever way. And, because it makes me think, the scene where they get to the planet, and then the planet's auto defense systems kick in, so these two missiles are shooting towards the ship, and Arthur activates the improbability drive, and it just turns the missiles into a whale and a bowl of petunias.
Yep.
And it's kind of it makes you think, it's like, did Douglas Adams write himself into a corner and not know how to get these guys out of this situation? He's like, oh, well, I'll just have the computer activate, and then it'll turn into something totally non-threatening, and we can move on. It's just like, okay. That's one way of doing it, I guess. And then it leads to the very random scene where we go through the entire thought process of one of the missiles turns into a whale.
Yeah.
And the entire thought process. And then, of course, and it preempts by saying, it didn't really live long enough for it to understand what it was and what was going on and all this stuff, and then it dies because it crash lands on the planet and explodes.
So we've transcribed for you its entire thought process.
Pretty much. It's just like, oh my gosh, what is this? Is this air? What am I? What's going on? And it makes up all the words for what it like. Oh, it's that fat quickly approaching me. I'm going to call it ground. And it's like, well, yes, we all call it ground, so that's convenient.
Well, it's not... I was actually just thinking about that because why would he be doing it in English? But that section did not need to be in English. It could be in any made-up language that the whale makes up, and then it just translates to English for us.
Well, I suppose that's true.
Because I was reading, I was like, the only thing that could test that theory is... he names the ground because it's a big round thing.
True.
So it's round, so we went with ground. So there's that rhyming thing.
Yeah, the thought.
And I imagine there's a lot of languages that have round and ground rhyme in whatever language they have. And it's not hard to come up with the idea that two words that sound alike mean something kind of similar, so...
Well, maybe.
So it still works, and it's like, it's another one of those clever things, it's like, you can get away with it this time, Douglas Adams, but one day, one day.
Trying to remember if I'm doing this correctly.
So, you actually brought up an interesting point that I was going to bring up. Who would you say the main character is? The main point of view, point of audience character.
I would almost say Ford.
Really?
I would say Ford because it's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and Ford is a data collector for The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So that's why he was on Earth, because he was gathering data about the planet so that he can put it into this great text that has sold better than any other text in all the galaxy, blah, 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 blah. So, I don't know, because I wouldn't say it's Arthur's. Part of me kind of wants to say Zaphod, because we know that in the first book, he talks about how he's done something to his brain to make him forget why he needs to do all these various things. And I know that leads to something. I can't remember exactly what from, because like I said, I read the books like in high school, and what he did to his brain and why is significant. And it does come back later. And I mean, he's like, he's the president of the galaxy right now. And of course, he's wanted for the theft of the Heart of Gold, which is just hilarious. But...
Oh, yes, the political commentary.
Oh, my gosh. It's just crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I would say either Ford or Zaphod.
So, you actually kind of touch on what I was going to bring up. Is because earlier you had mentioned Arthur Dent, and it definitely feels like Arthur Dent is the audience substitute. The whole book is also bookended with Arthur Dent solo. We start out with Arthur Dent in his house before it's about to get
demolished.
Yeah. And then we end up with Arthur Dent alone in his room until Zaphod comes over a speaker saying, hey, you want to go get something to eat?
Yes. It's a good thing.
So Arthur Dent, I would say, is the quote-unquote main character. But of the 5 main crew members, so Zaphod, Ford, Arthur, Trillian, and Marvin, in this book, who actually actively did anything that changed what was going on? So we have Ford, who pulls Arthur away from his house. He's the one who hitches a ride. He's the one who...
He's the one who gets Arthur into all of these situations. Because he's Arthur's drinking buddy, essentially.
Yep. And then we have Zaphod, who steals the Heart of Gold, and then pilots it to Magrathea, and then decides to land.
We have Trillian, who is another human. She's from Earth. Zaphod picked her up when they were at the party, and then she started traveling with him. So she definitely knows more than Arthur does, of course. But she doesn't have a terribly big role. I mean, she's kind of like the interface for the computer.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It almost feels like she's probably the most intelligent in terms of like mathematical probabilities and scientific knowledge and stuff like that. Which to me was a little weird, just because she's also human. She spent the majority of her life on Earth. Of course, we don't know how long she's been traveling with Zaphod. No, yes, we do. Yes, we do. 6 months. 6 months.
Yeah.
I said they were at the party 6 months previous. So, okay. So she's been traveling with Zaphod throughout the galaxy for 6 months. But she just seems to know more about, like, the Heart of Gold and the ship and how it functions and all that jazz more than Zaphod or Ford do.
Yeah.
Which I just found kind of interesting.
I mean, granted, the whole idea of this ship was kind of a secret.
Right.
So yeah, Ford definitely would not have known about it.
Yeah.
And Zaphod, whatever is going on with Zaphod, because it mentions he he acts ignorant for a couple different reasons. One, he's bored with the conversation. Mm-hmm. Two, he knows what's going on, but he doesn't want to seem like a smart aleck. Or like 3, he doesn't know what is going on and he doesn't want to seem ignorant. So he just always acts ignorant.
Yeah. So, he is intelligent. And he has a good understanding, usually, of the situation and what's going on and what should be done in order to get out of maybe a sticky situation that he's in. Which is what usually ends up happening. He gets himself into situations and he has to think his way out.
Yeah.
Which you can kind of see reflected in Ford when the Vogon ship first picks them up.
Yeah.
Ford's trying to think his way out. Now, Arthur is ultimately the one that gets them out of the whole poetry reading situation. Which is just weird. The Vogon poetry. I never really understood that. It's like, how can poetry physically harm you? On the other hand, I heard some puns that have almost physically hurt me, so maybe that's just basically what it is.
I don't know, I find him pretty punny.
That's my husband.
Yeah, I also love how the number 1 worst poet in the universe luckily died on when planet Earth was demolished or something.
Yes, the worst poet in the galaxy just happened to be a human who is no longer alive because the world was destroyed.
And she had a full name.
She did.
So I almost wonder...
Oh, no, I looked her up.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's just
random.
Yeah, she's just pure fiction.
Okay.
When I looked her up, it was just from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's it. That's where she's from.
I almost wonder if it's like similar enough that there's no way to figure out who it is, but that person, if they found out, would know that he was talking about that person. I don't know. But yeah, it's like a lot of details on that person. It's like, Douglas Adams, did you actually know someone who wrote bad poetry?
Yeah, maybe it's a play on her name or something.
Yeah, or his name. He could have switched it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like for the most part, Arthur did do that, and he also...
And he's the one who helped out when the missiles were coming towards the ship.
Yeah, he was closest to the button for the probability drive.
Yeah.
And
then of course the mice want him because...
but that just wants him. But he really doesn't do... He's a very passive hero.
Yes.
As it were. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because... So things are getting better nowadays. But like if you look at in the 90s, like a lot of your heroines, your female superheroes like Catwoman, they're also kind of like this. They're completely passive.
Wait, did you see Halle Berry?
Was it not Catwoman? Who am I thinking? I'm thinking of someone who basically...
Supergirl.
What?
I think you're thinking of Supergirl.
Was it Supergirl?
Yeah, not the series, but the movie.
So one of them, I forget which one it is, but basically doesn't do anything active, only just kind of responds to the situation that's happening.
Well, now that could be the series as well. So I only saw a couple of episodes, and I was like, "This is too girly." I just couldn't know. I was like, "Oh, look, the heroine. 2 beautiful men are fighting over the heroine. Oh no, her problems are so hard."
So yeah, when it's done with Arthur Dent, it is done with a purpose to completely put you, the audience, out of control of the situation. And like give you no bearings whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an interesting style, like when you read it and watch as Arthur is like a completely passive main character, and it's only other people who do all the things, which we don't normally get in our male heroes.
Not in our male American, no, but so I mean, you know, if you're not aware,
it's British.
Douglas Adams is a British writer, and Hitchhiker's Guide is indeed was published in England. So Arthur is very much. This was published in. The first one was published in 1979.
79, yeah.
So. Yeah, but I think that's what makes it comical.
It is.
Is that all these weird and crazy things are being thrown at him, and he's just like, right, well, I need a cup of tea.
Yeah.
And, you know, a very British reaction, you know, a stereotype.
It's done right for Arthur. But it's a very weird thing to have, you know, a passive main character. Usually it's done wrong.
True. But yeah, in this case, it is... I mean, I think it's done very well, and then it's a good contrast to Zaphod.
It is,
who always has to move. He's always got to be doing something unless he poses. Like, you know, someone will come into the room and he's very strategically lounging or something like that. But he can only stay that way for so long. And then he's got to stand. He's got to move around. He has to do something. Basically, Zaphod has ADHD. Essentially.
But he's also the biggest decision maker. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that.
Well, that's because he's like, I'm going to do this, and then he acts upon it, and no one can stop him before it is too late.
Which is a plot point.
It is definitely a plot point. What are the weird things? When everyone first meets up again, you know, Ford and Zaphod meet up again and all this jazz, they do call him Ford. This was the weird thing to me, reading it through, because they say in the book that when Ford came to Earth, he took that name. He took the name of Ford Prefect because he thought it would be normal. It's not a terribly normal name, but, you know, it works. But that's not his name. So when... Well,
because it did mention... Oh, so you were reading on the e-reader and you don't get the little...
Oh, that's right. Yes, I read this on my Nook, and... The book has little notations, and in the printed version, the notation is just at the bottom of the page, but in the e-version, the notations are not in the book at all. Like, you still see the little number 1 next to Ford's name, but you don't get the... You don't get the note that goes with the number. And I looked through it, trying to find it. What takes up most of the e-reader version is the interview with the cast members who were in the 2000 movie, and it's like, as fascinating as it is, I'd much rather have the subnote.
Yeah, so Ford Prefect's original name is only pronounceable in an obscure Betelgeusian dialect, now virtually extinct since the Great Collapsing Hrung disaster of galactic sidereal year 03758. Blah, 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 blah. Ford's father was the only man on the entire planet to survive.
See, I didn't know any of that.
The whole episode is shrouded in deep mystery. In fact, no one ever knew what a hrung was, nor why it had chosen to collapse on Betelgeuse 7 particularly. So Ford's father came to live on Betelgeuse 5 and christened him in the ancient Praxabeetle tongue, but Ford never learned to say his original name, so his father eventually died in shame, which is still a terminal disease in some parts of the galaxy.
Okay, so I guess...
Oh, but the other kids at school nicknamed him Ix, which is the language of Betelgeuse, or in the language of Betelgeuse 5, translates as boy who is not able to satisfactorily explain what a hrung is, nor why it should choose to collapse on Betelgeuse 7. But yeah, so it seems like even from a young age, he never actually could pronounce his real name, so I think his name of Ford is just the name he took up.
Okay, see that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So that's a disadvantage if you decide to read the book and you just want to download it and read it on an e-reader like I did, you might not get the footnote.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, I have a Nook e-reader that I got at Barnes & Noble, and I downloaded the book from the Barnes & Noble website. But there were several versions out. I just chose the cheapest version. So maybe that's part of it. That could definitely be part of it. But, like, if you...
I mean, the footnotes are one of the best things.
They really are. I was very disappointed.
My favorite part about this book isn't any of the characters, it isn't the plot or anything.
It's all the little tidbits.
It is all the little tidbits, either from the Hitchhiker's Guide or just kind of about the Hitchhiker's Guide. It's just all these little details that there's no reason for them to actually be there, but they're there for comedy.
Right. Like how,
and it's hilarious.
Like how when one of the missiles turns into a bowl of petunias, and we go through the whole, mental situation of the whale when he falls, and the only thing that goes through the mind of the petunias is, not again. And you're just like, not again?
Yeah.
What does that mean, not again? Does that mean it frequently just starts falling from the sky and crash lands on a strange planet? What does it mean?
It's funny because they actually, he mentions it in the book that says some scholars believe that if we could figure out why it thought that, mystery, or we would solve the mysteries of life.
Yeah, like,
but
we would know a lot more.
Well, how do these scholars even know that it thought that in the first place?
Right.
It's like they're around a hidden planet.
Mm-hmm.
And
how would you know what a bowl of petunias is?
So it's like one of those weird incongruencies that just make this book hilarious.
So good. And what I love about it is that you can see, like, I don't know if Terry Pratchett influenced Douglas Adams or Douglas Adams influenced Terry Pratchett, but I would like to make a little quick book recommendation of Good Omens, which was co-authored by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. And that is a hilarious book. I very much recommend it. We should do a review of that one too, because I love that book.
We'll add it to the list. Because I haven't read it.
Oh, it's so funny. It is so funny. It's so look, this is the plot, okay?
Surely we should be talking
of Good Omens. Just really quick. Just really quick. So the plot is that the Antichrist was born on the Earth, and this one demon is in charge of, like, raising him to be evil and all this jazz. He loses him. So he goes to this angel, one of the archangels who is actually a friend of his, and says, dude, I lost the Antichrist. You need to help me. And that's the book. And then just what they have to do to try to find the kid and all this stuff. And it's a great read. I really highly recommend it. But anyway, Douglas Adams, Hitchhikers.
Yeah.
Also funny.
It is. He also wrote, Douglas Adams also wrote a number of the old Doctor Who episodes.
He did. That's true. I forgot about that.
Some of the better ones.
Well, no, wait. So he wrote... Wait, did he write the books, or did he actually write, like, some of the
actual episodes?
Television episodes?
Yeah.
Oh, was that in 79? If so, then it would have been the Tom Baker episodes, which I like. I like Tom Baker.
I'm not sure. I mean, we can look it up and find out what episodes he wrote.
Oh, we can do that too.
Yeah. But they were some of the good episodes. I'm a classic Who fan, so there's that. We
did watch the reboot, and I gotta say, as much as I love Tennant, I do love Tennant. Tennant's pretty sweet. I like Capaldi in that I like his acting, but I don't like the writing for Capaldi's seasons.
I mean, we only got through like the first half of the first season just because we couldn't.
It was hard, you guys. It really, really was. But Eccleston, I liked Eccleston the best.
Of the new Doctors, Eccleston is my Doctor.
Yeah.
I love Tennant. I think he's one of the best Doctors.
Yeah.
But Eccleston was my Doctor of the new Doctors.
Of the new Doctors. My Doctor overall has got to be Tom Baker. And I say that because my mom used to watch it, and she had a lot of the VHSs hanging around in the house, so that was the first Doctor Who I was exposed to, was Tom Baker. And I used to watch it as a kid, so when I heard they were rebooting it, I was one of, like, the 5 Americans who knew what was going on. I was excited.
Yeah. So, I grew up with Doctor Who as well, and, like, most people our age, we learned about Doctor Who from our parents, or who knew about Doctor Who, learned from our parents who got into it when Tom Baker was big and huge. So,
yeah.
If you asked me before the new series started, I would have said Baker as well. But what happened is I went back and watched every episode of Classic Who. And, like, so I watched the first Doctor, and I'm like, oh, I like him. He might be my Doctor. Then I watched the second Doctor, and I'm like, oh, he might be my Doctor. Finally, I get to the third Doctor, Pertwee, and he is my Doctor.
And yes, Paul has watched beyond that, and he still has actually kept with Pertwee.
I have, yes.
So he's stopped.
I would love to write a fan fiction of Pertwee meeting the Silence.
Oh, it's gonna be cute.
Using his Venusian Aikido.
Yes, his Venusian Aikido. Oh my gosh. Pertwee's something else, yes.
We do need to do some episodes of this. It is very beautiful.
I designed it, so that's why I'm like, look at it! I would, I don't know if anyone, I feel like it's too dark.
It might be too dark.
It might be too dark. You can kind of see it.
Right up in there.
You can kind of see it. Okay, anyway.
So,
hi, Cyrus.
Yeah, we need to do a
Oof.
Spin a Yarn live of Doctor Who at some point. We can go Doctor by Doctor.
We could go Doctor by Doctor, which would take a very long time once we got to Tom Baker, because Tom Baker is the one with the scarf.
Or we could do season by season.
Or we could do season.
So we'd end up doing 7 Baker episodes, but he was around the longest.
Yeah, Tom Baker was the longest running Doctor, which is why when most people think of classic Doctor Who, they think of the tall, thin Doctor with the really long scarf. That's Tom Baker. And he was the tallest Doctor, like 6'4". He was a really tall guy. And his hair was poofy, so that even added more.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of, like, you can see, well, I'm getting back to that. I am segueing back right now. You can see in a lot of the good Doctor Who episodes a similar type of comedy, kind of almost absurdism that would lead Douglas Adams to write for Doctor Who and, of course, make the Hitchhikers trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a lot of absurdism. It's a lot of, like, little details that really shouldn't be mentioned, but are absolutely hilarious.
They are absolutely hilarious. Like, the fact that drink was created by Zaphod.
It was created by Zaphod.
Yeah, this drink...
The Pangalactic Gargle Blaster.
Yes, thank you. That's what it is. It's a mouthful. But, like, and they give you the recipe for it.
It is a mouthful.
Yeah, see. So they give you the recipe for it. And, of course, it's all this random stuff. But the effect that they say it has is something crazy. Like, essentially, you would die. Like, you turn to jelly or something. It, like, turns you into something else or turns your brain to mush.
And then at some point, it's like getting hit over the head with a brick wrapped in gold or something.
Yeah, like, something like a gold brick or something like that. But, yeah, it's this drink that's just absolutely terrible. And yet at one point we see Zaphod in the book, he is drinking it. He's drinking one. Mm-hmm. Or he has one in his hand at the very least. And it's just like, because then there's also this like rehab place that you go to after having consumed one.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, so what is really the point of this drink besides just getting total, I mean, like, it erases all memory of you having ever had it, and, like, I don't know, you guys. I'm not a big drinker.
No. Can't find it. But, yeah, no, it's just so much detail about the Pangalactic Gargle Blaster. And then, like, later in the book, you just see Zaphod sipping one. Mm. And it's a really good callback. I think they mention it, I think he does follow the rule of 3, and it's like, at one point, it describes its effects. At another point, it comes up with Zaphod having created it, and then the final time it comes up, it's just Zaphod just kind of drinking one.
Yeah. I think even Ford mentions it at some point when he's still on Earth. Before all the madness happens.
Yeah, something.
I just don't know if this is wide enough, you guys. I might do it again and put a second cable. It seems kind of narrow.
It's pretty narrow.
It is really narrow. I was kind of trying to do like a nice big one. I mean, it's a bulky yarn. I don't know. What do you guys think? It is. Hang on. This is my box of wonder. It's a box of cookies.
How long are you planning to make it?
Oh, I'm just gonna, do it until I run out of yarn.
I mean, if you do that, then you can just wrap it around your neck a couple times and
it's
then...
4 inches wide. And then I was going to kind of do it until I ran out of yarn. I got 2 skeins of this Lion Brand Yarns Heartland. And it is some number of yards long. It should tell me. It is 251 yards. Now, I got 2 skeins, but I want to do a matching hat. So, of course, I got to have leftover for the hat. So, I don't know. If I make it super long, you guys think 4 inches wide is good enough?
I think that'll be good.
I mean, it's kind of a neutral color. Like, it could either be a men's scarf or a women's scarf. But I feel like if I keep it narrow, that'll keep it in the lady department.
It will, yeah.
Oh, well. I think it's pretty.
It is pretty.
Yeah. But, anyway. If you guys have an opinion, I don't know if we've got anybody even watching out in the web world. I mentioned it on Facebook, but,
I don't think anyone actually showed up.
I think only 5 people were like, oh, that's cool. And then, stuff happens. Anyway. But that's not the point. The point is that it's a new pattern that I'm just trying out. But the other point is that a highly recommended book. It's a very short book, too. If you happen to read it. Now, as you can see, we have the omnibus that we got at Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
Almost all the books that we have are either from Barnes & Noble or from Borders. Because I used to work for Borders until they died. And then I worked for Barnes & Noble.
Or from my mom's library.
Or from his mom's library. Or maybe even my parents' library. I might have stolen a couple of things from them.
Maybe a couple.
Anywho. It's a really quick read. I thought it was longer when I was reading it on my Nook because the Nook says, page whatever of 200 and however many pages it says on the Nook. But those remaining 70 or 90 odd pages, maybe even over 100 pages, have to do with the interviews and just little tidbits and, stuff that sometimes you find at the end of the book, like little blurbs about the author or a cover artist if there was one, that kind of stuff. But mostly it was interviews with some of the actors. Not Alan Rickman, so I didn't care. But that is a question. If any of you saw the mid-2000s movie, but are familiar at all with the miniseries that was done back in the 80s, and you saw that, which one did you like better? I mean, speaking personally, I liked the miniseries better for a number of reasons. One, for the campiness of it. It had the same budget, basically, as a Doctor Who episode, so... Of the original Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
Like, now BBC shells out huge bucks for Doctor Who, which is awesome, because it's a beautiful series. But back in the day, not so much. It's hilarious. And if you haven't seen some original Doctor Who episodes, I highly recommend it. Just for the hilarity of, like, when you see a Dalek now, you're like, oh no, a Dalek. They're pretty intimidating and have all this technology and stuff. Watch, like, the first appearance of the Daleks.
Or better yet, the Cybermen.
Oh my god. Those costumes. The Cybermen are the Daleks, the appearance of them really hasn't changed. It's really stayed consistent throughout the 50 years.
But they did not have their catchphrase of exterminate yet.
They didn't, but they had a lot of words that rhymed with exterminate. Which is
there's
weird.
one episode which was written as a comedy, and we'll talk about that when we actually do a Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
We need to get back to...
yeah. So anyway, Douglas Adams and Hitchhikers, yeah.
What a hoopy food he is.
Yes. Forgive us. We go on tangents a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry about that. But anyway, so the whole premise, I find, one of the things that I find pretty hilarious, if you saw the movie, the mid-2000s movie with Alan Rickman and the guy who played Bilbo in the three Hobbit movies, whose name I can't remember. He's in that Sherlock show.
He's in every British show.
No, you're thinking of Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm talking about his co-star.
No, all British actors are in all British shows.
Well, yes.
It's just one of those things that happens.
But at the end of the
because he was in Hot Fuzz too, and all of the...
He was in Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
I just realized that.
Yeah, no,
I should really know this actor's name then.
I know. He's all over the place, and we can't remember. Everybody knows him, so...
Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. But at the end of that movie, the ending of the movie and the ending of the book are very different. And it's quite interesting, because the ending of the movie is actually kind of happy and uplifting. The ending of the book, not so much. Because, you know, the Earth was created in order to be this big organic computer. To solve to solve the mystery of the ultimate question. The answer, we know. And the answer to life, universe, and everything is, of course, 42. Yep. But so when Deep Thought, the first computer that was created to come up with the answer, gave the answer, and he told the scientists, he says, "You're not going to like it.
You're not going to like it."
And they're like, "Just tell us." He goes, "You're really not going to like it." And they're just like, "Oh my God, just tell us." And he's 42. And so you're sitting there going, well, if that's the answer, what's the question? So they create a new computer, which is the Earth. Yes, Iris. And, you know, so they're trying to figure out what is the question. We have the answer, but what's the question? And the irony of it all is that the Earth is destroyed to make way for a galactic bypass 5 minutes before the computation would have been completed. So Arthur, who was on the planet at the time of its destruction, you know, seconds away from it until he was able to hitch a ride on the Bogon ship, the individuals who created the computer, who are lab mice.
Who took the form of lab mice in this dimension, yeah.
Who took the form of lab mice in this dimension, right. You know, they go after him to try to see if they can get the answer out of his brain, or to get the question, I should say, out of his brain. You're drooling. Why? Kitty. He's old. Little baby. But they talk about how lab mice, to take the form of lab mice was this ingenious plan, because then they were able to watch all the scientists and guide them. So based on what they did, when you would put them in a maze or do like the shock therapy thing or what have you, they would steer the scientists to what they wanted the scientists to believe. So it's just really funny, because at the end of the book you've got these two and they're just the regular size of mice that you would think. So, but the lab mice, they want to cut into Arthur's brain or head and remove his brain, and it becomes this chase, and it's just like, why are you afraid? I mean, you shouldn't be. You are, because they have technology way in advance and beyond of what we could possibly imagine. But at the same time, you're running from two little mice. And it's just kind of like, this is really weird. Because if you send something like this into the picture, then very quickly you end up having the upper hand. Because he is a mouser, and he will get them. Meow, meow, meow. So it was just... So it's that other little bit of humor that Douglas Adams put in. It's just like... I want the big bad guys to be the most non-threatening beings that I can possibly think of.
It sounds like my D&D games.
Yes, it does! Oh my gosh. It's really, really funny, you guys. We're going to have to do We should do a full episode on that first campaign. This is my
goodness.
knitting needle. You may not eat it. He likes to chew on my knitting needles.
No.
I don't know why.
Oh.
I didn't mean for him to get it away from me. He does. He's a little baby. You can't have it. Anyway. So, it's... And then, of course, the book doesn't really end, because he had written it originally as a trilogy. They just kind of get out of the immediate danger zone.
I mean, if it did not continue, it had a solid enough ending. I mean, it had, like, it almost had sequel baiting.
Well, just because the last line is, do you want to go, we're going to swing by the restaurant at the end of the universe to get a bite to eat. Which is, of course, the name of the next book.
Yeah, of course, yeah. There's the big plot with all that. But if that was the only book, it would just sound like all this happens, and then they go grab a bite to eat. And it just adds this level of, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't.
Which is kind of the point of the whole book, is, like, all these big things happen.
Cyrus.
The Earth gets destroyed, the question to life, the universe, and everything gets, never gets
lost.
computed.
Yeah.
They find Magrathea, this planet that built planets. But in the end, none of it really matters. It's just life will go on. Which is a very interesting way of doing it. But it's also, all of that said, it also looks at it from like a optimistic point of view. So it's not like Rick from Rick and Morty.
Right, where everything's just pointless and nothing matters.
Which is like a pessimistic nihilism.
Yeah. This is more, nothing really matters, but you might as well have fun while you're doing it.
Yeah.
This, you cannot, will you stop it?
Oh, he will not.
Would you, put that paw down. It's just very slowly raising his paw to try and attack all my things. You hear the birdie outside? Why don't you go hunt some birdies? But it is a fun read, and after because the other books that we've been reading lately is, let's see, well, I've been reading the Mercy Thompson series, in a line with Alpha Omega by Patricia Briggs, by the way. Excellent series. I highly recommend picking it up.
Yeah, we'll do them at some point. We'll pick up that series.
Yeah. But another series that we've done and we have pre-recorded, which, have you put up the Dresden ones?
Yeah, so all of the previous recordings we've done is up and live for them to go look at the backlog. Okay,
so we did do Dresden, which is urban fantasy, same as Patricia Briggs, but the Dresden Files it's darker.
Yep.
And so after kind of reading that and Patricia Briggs, which isn't really dark, it's still urban fantasy, but it's still, there's still death and blood and all that jazz. So after reading some dark stuff and then reading a very light comedy that is sci-fi, it was just kind of, it was a nice little palate cleanser. You know? So it's a good, because it's a really fast read and it's a really fun read.
It is. Though, one thing that kind of throws me, if you look at a lot of the big sci-fi classics, the ones that have stuck around, you have Star Trek, you have Star Wars, you have Doctor Who, but then also you throw in like the comedies, or just kind of if you're kind of a nerd, things that you know about, like Monty Python. Of all of those, I feel like, even though Hitchhiker's Guide has stuck around the whole time, and it's still it's still relevant, but
he's 13 years old and he still acts like a little baby.
He is a little baby.
Whoa.
But I don't know, it kind of seems like something people know about, but it doesn't really go further than that, which is a shame because I love the Hitchhiker's trilogy. But if you mention anything Monty Python, it just turns into like an hour and a half of quoting various Monty Python bits.
Which is true.
Don't start. But then like even, well, of course Star Wars is still ongoing.
Yeah.
Star Trek has kind of fallen off, and now it has this kind of reboot.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of doing its thing. Doctor Who, of course, finally got a big reboot.
It did.
With Christopher Eccleston. And just like, every time we see the Hitchhikers come up, it's pretty much just another format of the first book.
Right, because then because when we had the movie in the mid-2000s, as you say, it ended with the first book. And the way it ended, it gave a more solid ending. Yeah. And I remember seeing it in the movie theater with my sister, and we were kind of like, well, now, wait a minute. There are 4 other books.
Yeah.
Are they going to continue? Because we liked it. It was entertaining.
It was a very interesting movie because I went into it knowing a couple of the changes they made, and I was pretty skeptical about it. But I was like, okay, let's see what you've got. And went in, watched it, and some of the changes I didn't like, it was very inventive to put Zaphod's second head underneath his first head. Mm-hmm. It's inventive, but I really didn't like it.
It was weird. I guess it made costume and effects a little bit easier, because he only popped up every once in a while. But, because if you watch the original miniseries, it's a very fake looking second head that they've got on the actor's shoulders, and it's obviously not an actual head. The effects are of course better in the more recent movie,
right?
But yeah, it was just kind of odd.
Well, because my other thing is he's not an alien species. Well, I mean he is, but pretty much almost everything in the universe is human.
Well, they say humanoid.
But they also say humans a lot of times to kind of refer to a lot of different things, and it's like, well, and they mentioned that how life got started. Well, yeah, that's a different thing. But so everybody's kind of humanoid, and of course Ford and Zaphod are cousins, and Ford passes for human.
Yeah.
So the fact that Zaphod gets a surgery to split his brain in 2 to basically add a coding in there.
And then he also has a third arm because it's useful. Listen. This is not one of your toys, okay? Stop it. Yes, you're very cute. You're very cute, but do it.
This is all people watch for.
Yes, I'm sure it is. Now that they've seen a large black cat who just gets in the way.
All 0 people watching.
Batty. Well, Osiris is supposed to be the main draw.
Yes.
He's our eye candy.
But yeah, so Zaphod getting a second head installed to split his brain across 2 brains so that he could do secrets with it. I feel like adding that surgery to put a head underneath the head you already have, and somehow finding space to put that brain just did not work for me.
Yeah, it was just, I didn't really
it's very inventive. It's definitely inventive. It's like the classic 2 heads is side by side, and that gets boring and old. But in story, I just can't see that way working. But, so what I was saying is, I went in, there was a lot of changes I didn't like, spent way too much time with the people who worshipped the great Kleenex in the sky or whatnot. Bless you. Oh. Yeah, you don't even remember that, do you?
I don't remember it. Was that from the movie or from the book?
Yeah, from the movie.
Okay.
But I came out of it and I was like, okay, Douglas Adams wanted every version of the Hitchhikers trilogy to be different. He didn't just want the same thing over and over again. So he wanted the radio show to be different from the TV show, to be different from the book. Like, kind of the same theme, same going in. So I'm willing for the new movie to be different. That was fine with me. And even though there was things I didn't like, oh geez, scared him. I came out of the movie and I was like, okay, they did it well. It felt like his voice. If they want to do the second book, I'm okay with this. It was done well enough. Then I found out later that Douglas Adams wrote the majority of that movie, and then of course passed away.
Right.
So it's like, oh well, now they can't.
Yeah.
I'm back to square one. I do wish they did continue the movies, but...
But it's hard when someone like Douglas Adams isn't there to help. And it's not just, because he wants it to be a certain way. I mean, he's obviously a great writer and very comedic, and it's hard to continue it and make it have the same feel when you don't have it, because you can tell if you watch Doctor Who, you can tell episode to episode if there was a different writer involved. You can just feel it. Everything feels different. Not always bad.
You know
or
who
good.
should
just
write more Hitchhikers stuff? Eddie Izzard.
Yes.
Eddie Izzard would make a great follow-up to Douglas
gosh.
Adams to continue that.
Eddie Izzard is... If you don't know who Eddie Izzard is, you should.
Yeah.
Go look him up.
Because they have a very different, but kind of a similar vein of comedy.
Yeah. Again, it kind of falls under... I mean, speaking as an American, I feel like it falls under that British... dry comedy of when you're telling your joke or you're saying something witty, it's all just very deadpan.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely love.
Well, it's also, because like I said with Douglas Adams, it's combining two things but having one be a nut. Yeah. And so yeah, like entirely the same, or almost like, or exactly the same way that bricks don't. That's the...
Right. And yeah, almost entirely, not quite tea.
Yeah, not... Almost, but not quite entirely unlike tea.
Yes, thank you. That whole thing.
Oh, yes. I've, my parents were big Douglas Adams fans as well, so...
Yes.
I don't know if my dad read that, read Hitchhiker's Guide to me as a nighttime story. He read the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy to me as a bedtime story when I was a little baby. Twice. I imagine he had to have read the Hitchhikers.
Probably.
That's just a story that I've known for so long.
Oh, yeah. I feel like a lot of people have known it. Even if you haven't read the book or even seen the movies, everyone just knows. When you say 42, you know you're talking about the answer to life, universe, and everything.
It's a good litmus test if you should continue talking to someone or not.
Yeah.
If you say 42 and they laugh, then you continue talking to them.
There you go. There you go. But anyway, it looks like our hour is up. Thank you so much for joining us. I got a couple of inches into my itty bitty little scarf, and this is just an FYI. This scarf and hat set that I'm making, I don't really have any intention of keeping it, so it will be available on my Etsy site when it is finished. I don't know at the moment how much I will charge for it because I don't know how long it's going to take me. So, yeah.
And I've only gotten that far in my Yarn It All bookmark. So now it says, You're new. You're new. This probably won't be for sale unless somebody actually wants it. I think it would... I wonder, can you even... You probably can't even read that on that.
I think it's too small.
I'll look later. It would be nice if this was just kind of mounted like this up there, but...
Yeah, you can do a big one.
We'll see.
So, anyway, thanks for joining us again. If you want to read along with us, for next week, we are doing the second in the Myth series, Myth Conceptions. This is by Robert Asprin. Also, I don't think he's American.
Yes.
Yeah, this guy's American, but it's again full of dry humor, although quite a bit of slapstick as well.
Yeah.
And this book, in case you're interested, was written in 1980. 1980. Wow, the first book was written in like 1969. That's a long wait for the second book. That's interesting. Anyway, if you want to do the first book is called Another Fine Myth.
And it is a fast read, so you can get through all of these.
Yeah, also available to download on the Nook or e-reader, what have you. I will say that it has some typos, at least for the version that I bought. it looks like it was just scanned and then not all of it was double checked. Like a word, it should be out, it says put. You know, so a couple letters changed around, but not enough that you would get confused. You would just go, oh, that was wrong.
Yeah, because that's definitely the age before.
Yes.
We have, like, digital files before sending it to a printer.
Yeah, so another funny read. Although this one, I think this one has a nice battle scene and stuff in it with magic and swords and sorcery and all that jazz, but done in a very deadpan way. Mm-hmm. So, highly recommend. So, join us next week if you feel like it. Thank you so much for those who have watched, and we will see you next time.
And